If you've paid any attention to AI recently, there's a good chance you know of or have at least heard about Photoshop's new Generative Fill feature. And unlike a lot of other AI gimmicks that have come out recently, I've actually made use of this with my most recent thumbnail by filling in these edges and even created this monstrosity on Dust Bowl. And this gave me an idea. What would Photoshop do if I took a screenshot from a bunch of different TF2 maps, erased a section, and then applied the Generative Fill? How would it compare to the initial screenshot, and what surprises may await? Well, there's only one way to find out, so let's dive in. Alright, so as a Dust Bowl connoisseur, the first thing we need to do is find a few spots on Dust Bowl and see how they look in Photoshop. And I think this area actually over here with this sign will work out just perfectly. I wonder if Photoshop will generate something interesting because of the sign, or if it'll just generate wall, but there's only one way to find out, so let's jump right in. So here's the screenshot in Photoshop. Now we need to delete this area and then apply the Generative Fill. But before we do that, I'm going to create a backup of this base layer, that way we have something to compare it to once we apply the fill. So I'm going to click Ctrl J to duplicate that, hide the original. Now I'm going to add a mask to this layer, and using the brush tool, I can now paint away this part of the tunnel that I want Photoshop to generate over. I'm going to go ahead and leave a little bit of the track remaining so that way Photoshop knows that there's supposed to be something going in there. At least that's what I'm hoping for. I think this is enough room for Photoshop to work with, so now I'm going to select the lasso tool and create a selection around the mask, making sure to add a little bit of a lip, that way Photoshop has enough room to make the resulting image seamless. Now all I have to do is press Generative Fill, leave this field blank, and hit Generate. Okay, I did not expect this. This is like, they literally just plugged it all off. I thought there was going to be some sort of cave. We have a few different options here, and the third one, okay, that is very bizarre. It looks like the train tracks turn into some sort of ladder here, but we have 3 versions to go with, and what we can actually do, since none of these versions are actually satisfying for me, is we can hit the generate button once more, and this bar is going to fill out, and we're going to get 3 more results. So let's see how that turns out. Okay, so Photoshop just finished generating the next 3 images, and these are not looking very good. In fact, they look worse than the last 3. So let's go ahead and call this one an L, and let's move on to the next location. So I have to give Dust Bowl another chance, and after flying around for a bit, I've decided with this area over here. I'm gonna remove this building that says Jenkin Coal Company, and Photoshop is gonna have to put something here because this conveyor belt can't just go up to nothing. And I'm gonna leave these 2 back buildings right there, so Photoshop does have some sort of building template to work off of. So let's jump right into Photoshop for the second time, and let's hope that it does something better. Now, one thing I forgot to show you guys is the comparison between the last screenshot before and after. So here's what it is after, and here's what it is before. As you can see, Photoshop does a pretty good job of replicating the surrounding environment, but it is a little blurry. These train tracks do get pretty low resolution. And I think this sign right here actually is from this one over here, and maybe it thinks it's supposed to be symmetrical because that's sort of the structure that's going on here. I don't know, but let's move on to the next screenshot. So here's the second screenshot, and I've already duplicated the layer and added a mask, so all that's left to do is carve out the area that we want to be replaced. And I'm actually going to be a little bit more specific with this one, that way Photoshop can just be that much better at generating the final result. I don't think it'll be as bad as the last one because Photoshop has to do something with this pipe, because come on, there can't just be a floating pipe with some random blob in the air. So I'm really excited actually to see what Photoshop comes up with. So let me clean this up just a little bit and get back to you guys when I finish this mask. So here's what the mask looks like, and comparing it to the base screenshot, I removed a little bit of extra room around the corners of the roofs, that way Photoshop has enough room to properly generate an actual structure. I'm really curious to see how Photoshop's going to incorporate the smoke coming out of the top of the mask, so let's go ahead and make our selection and generate fill to see what Photoshop comes up with. Alright, and crossing my fingers that it's something that's not boring. Whoa, okay, that is cool, that is cool. Let's look at the second one. The second one is exactly what we didn't want, and the third one, hey, it added a chimney, but it's over here for some reason instead of under the smoke, and it looks like there's a giant pile of scrap, so I think the first one is the winner. This is actually pretty cool. Let's go ahead and generate one more time just to see what other stuff Photoshop has to come up with. And these are the second batch of images. Okay, this second one looks like some sort of crane, and there's a little bit of gold over there, it looks like, that's pretty cool. But no, I think the first image from the first batch is the best looking one. So hey, I'm gonna call that a W. Looks kind of scuffed, but hey, at least the smoke makes sense. And I like this sort of box chimney thing. I don't even know if it's supposed to represent anything, but it's cool. So let's go ahead and move on to another map. Actually, I just forgot again, so let's go ahead and compare it to the original. All right, now we can move on to the next map. So for the second map, I wanted to go with something that had the most detail imaginable, and the first thing that popped up in my mind was Kong King. So we're gonna go with this map, and I think the angle I'm gonna go with is this right here. I'm gonna take out this giant skyscraper in the middle and part of this walkway at the bottom and see what Photoshop has to come up with. So I'll be back with you in Photoshop in just a moment. Okay, so for this screenshot, I'm gonna be a little bit more generous than last time because I think last time I still didn't select enough area to generate over. So I'm gonna be very, very generous here and just get rid of all of this area. Make sure to get even a little bit of the area that's not even covering the building, just so that Photoshop can really show us what it's capable of. Okay, that is cool. We even got the moon finished out here, where if we compare it to the original, you can see it was covered by a little bit of this building right here. Wow, it generated a completely different looking building, different windows and everything, but it does fit. Now, I don't really know what's going on here. Looks like Photoshop's trying to get a little bit creative and add like a walkway separated by whatever this thing is in the middle. Let's go ahead and look at the second screenshot. Oh, it continued. Wow. Oh my, I can't stress how cool this is. This actually looks like it could be part of the map, okay? This, like, you can still tell, yeah, it's Photoshop AI generated, but this part of the building, man, and it even added like this little, that looks like a floating plant grass thingy. I don't know. What about the third one? Okay, the third one's just like the second one, except Photoshop decided to be a little bit more creative, and instead of stretching this out, it created its own little thing. So that's really cool. I actually want to generate more, so let me select this image and hit generate. When you hit generate, whatever image you have selected, it's supposed to, from what I've heard, generate more that are sort of like this one. So I want to see more where there's like a little bit more area of the sky here. And it doesn't look like that happened. Okay, right here. Wow. Okay, if there was no walkway here, okay, so in the original one, there's a staircase that goes down. But if there was no staircase, it looks like this would actually be a valid, oh look, we got like a freaking, what is that, Dementor from Harry Potter or something? A Death Eater? I don't know. But it looks like if that ladder wasn't there, this would actually fit into the map pretty well. And the third one, okay, we got one of those like ghetto alleyways. You'd probably find a pile of ash over there. But I'm really happy with this. I think Kong King, because of all the detail that's around the area, it works very, very well. So let's go ahead and move on to one more map and see what kind of craziness we can come up with. So for the final map, I wanted to go with a map with a little bit more vegetation. So it was a choice between this, Enclosure, or Borneo. And after flying through all those maps, I decided to go with this one. And I want to go with this little angle right outside of Blue Spawn. There's a lot of vegetation on the left and a little bit on the right. And what I'm going to do is knock out this entire center portion of the map, leaving a little bit at the bottom, and see what Photoshop comes up with. So here we are in Photoshop for the last time, and just like I said, I'm gonna knock out this entire region, making sure Photoshop has a lot of space. And there's just a lot going on in this image, as far as the train tracks, trees, pathways, grass. I mean, Photoshop can generate a million different things in this area, so I'm curious to see what it comes up with. Come on, give us something cool to finish off the video. Oh my gosh. Whoa. What is going on? This is... Okay, I shouldn't be surprised because Photoshop is obviously going to do something since I selected such a large area. But wow, like, I think it's confused between like how much of it should look realistic and how much shouldn't. Because obviously TF2's art style is very cartoony, but these images, I mean, this one especially, you could see like real looking trees and houses in the background. This is just like so cursed. The first one looks a little bit more cartoony. There's some weird hiccups in the background. The second one, like I said, we were just looking at that one, is just super bizarre. The third one, it looks like there's some sort of fort at the center here. It reminds me of some sort of like, I don't know, World War II thing. I don't know. Let's go ahead and generate one more time and see what Photoshop spits out. Okay, this looks a lot, I don't know if it's better. Whoa. Okay, this looks super cool. Okay, whoa. Okay, this is my favorite. Look, it's got like this sort of like statue with little thing around it. We've got like this giant mansion over here. It kept the fence. It turned it into something a little bit more creative when you if you compare it to the original. I mean, wow, just look, and it's like seamless too. Like I'm baffled by this. I mean, this is so cool. I could do this all day, but this video would get way too long. I mean, let me generate one more time, okay? Just to have a little bit extra fun. Okay, so now we got this mountain in the background. The trees look a little bit more cursed. The second one, third one. Okay, so there's a lot more going on in the distance here. You can really tell by the depth perception. Looks like some sort of courtyard, and looks like there's a lot more to the map. The map could have easily just kept going straight instead of making a right turn. But I think out of all of these, this one right here is my favorite. I just love this like giant mansion thing with all these wooden docks and this little like memorial statue thingy over here. I like how it modified this fence to look this way. It's just super cool, man. And just looking back at all of these, they're just I'm baffled, man. This is so cool. I recommend doing this for yourself. If you have Photoshop, you can install the beta. It's super cool. But that's enough for this video. Thank you for watching. This is LED switching off.